Transformers Chronicles, the Marvel Years.
Hello and welcome back to Transformers Chronicles. I'm Delvin, aka the Dark Web, and in case you're new to the show, welcome. And let me tell you what this thing is all about. We're going for a wild, crazy ride, chronicling the awesome, wacky, sometimes corny world of Marvel Comics, the Transformers. But I'll never be going at it alone. First up, we have the founder of the LONGBOX CRUSADE. He is the relative novice to the Transformers world. He is the seeker of the Matrix of Knowledge. His name is Pat Sampson. We call him DJ Chris Tatos. Pat, welcome to the show.
Hey, Delvin. Glad to be here. I can't wait to talk about this video game that we were playing here. Got some characters that I like, and hopefully things will go well with that gun. Maybe.
Yeah,
maybe they'll make a sequel.
Yes. Yeah, maybe. Sometimes, you get the character starts off all weak and everything, but this character just seemed to be strong from the start and just kicking everybody's butt. Yeah, I like that.
I do.
Makes for an easy game. Next up, I should go back to the script. Oh, you know what? I'm not going back to the script. I'm doing it. I'm going scriptless here. Next up, we have the lesser half of any MWC related podcast that you could possibly think of. He is our Transformers expert. His name is Jonathan Schaefer-Hames. John, welcome to the show.
Hello, Delvin.
Hi, John.
I was on spring break for a while, which was nice, but now I'm back at work and in school, or back on the chain gang, as it were. Don't get me wrong. I do like the time off, but I'm here and I will stand by you while we talk about these new characters that we meet today in this issue.
Nothing but new characters. And just very, very quick about that spring break. Did you see any pretty ladies in bikinis, and maybe some guys in some Speedos or something? Yeah. Was it a spring break gone wild?
Far from it, Delvin. He saw the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Yeah. Yes, my wife has called it my wild spring break shenanigans, and involved seeing the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
We were the only ones in the theater.
We were. It was great.
It was kind of awesome.
I'm surprised at that. I thought the movie was doing pretty good, and I heard pretty good things about it.
Yeah, it was pretty good. We just went at a weird matinee time on a Sunday.
Also, it's Eau Claire.
Mm-hmm. And it's Eau Claire in a theater. So,
but they still played it for us.
In case you didn't catch it, and in this era where I'm not able to play the music underneath it anymore, I did reference 3 songs by the 80s group, The Pretenders.
Oh.
Pat got it.
I got it. I was just waiting. I was waiting to jump in, but I didn't want to ruin anything. Like, I think this John's pretending to be somebody else.
Yeah. I'm going to just chop that.
It would have helped.
Yeah, sorry. I ruined the whole bit.
Well, I needed a visual. Like, I was hoping that John would like split apart and like there's like a miniature John that appeared out. But you know what? That you can only do that trick once as a human being.
It's like a really lame Russian doll. It's like,
and no one else would have seen it but like us, and like, oh my God. Yeah. Probably not a good thing. Moving on to the greater half of any MWC related podcast that you could think of, Married Watching Cartoons, at least being one of them. She is the greater half of Married Watching Cartoons, MWC, the Schaefer-Hames clan. She is Maggie Schaefer-Hames. Maggie, welcome to the show.
It's me. Hello.
Hi.
I'm here.
Hi, Maggie.
Hello. I'm not scrolling through the comic right now. Not at all. I read it. I read it. I'm just trying to remember specific things. Mm-hmm. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. And I want to ask you about how your dressage lessons are going, because I remember that from past episodes.
Yeah. We're rapidly approaching the competition I'm supposed to be in, hopefully, fingers crossed. And over the weekend, we took the dog to the dog park, and she and a fellow canine ran full force into my right knee, which hurt a lot and continues to hurt. So we'll see. I also rode a little longer and a little harder than I should have yesterday, because it had been a while since I'd gotten to ride, and I kind of got like wrapped up in what I was practicing. Like sometimes you kind of just lose track of anything else and you sort of just go. So that's kind of where we're at. Just, in a lot of pain.
So I missed something. What ran into your knee?
The dog and another dog.
Wow.
They were playing at the dog park, and they were just running around, and they weren't paying attention to where they were going, and they ran into me. And it hurt a lot. It hurt a great deal because our dog is small, but she's like a bullet. So it was painful. Yeah, something got hurt in there, but it's all right.
I want neither dogs nor bullets hitting my knees. So rest up, please, Maggie. And not that anyone asks about me, and not that my feelings, aren't hurt about it or anything. So I'll ask myself, what did you do, Delvin? Oh, thanks, Delvin. I'm glad you asked. I didn't really do much. No, that's not true. Yesterday, day before that, I was up in Boston, Massachusetts. Not a place I've been to a ton in my life. One of my buddies, Jeremy, retired from the Air Force as a colonel. He was one of my first roommates that I had when I was in the Air Force, and he made it a little bit farther along up the ranks in his career than I did, and I couldn't be prouder for him. He gets to now chill out with his wife and 2 kids and see what's in that next chapter. So I'm super happy for him. And it was super cool seeing Boston. I got to ride a duck boat, and those things are pretty cool. It reminded me of a James Bond like vehicle where this thing could, it's like, it's sort of shaped like a duck, but like, it will like in the Dells. I'm going off of hearsay, Pat. Like I'm not sure myself. Like, but I was riding in it, and then it hit the water, and we trawled around the Charles River, and the guy was shooting out history all over the place. So he was saying a lot of cool historical stuff about not only America, but the city of Boston as well, because as most people would know, Boston is one of the oldest cities in the United States. A lot of history there. So it was really cool hearing that. It's something that as a kid, I would have probably been a little bit bored by, but as an adult, I thought it was absolutely fascinating. I loved it. That was great.
Cool.
Sweet. So we've got dressage out of the way. We've got Pat stuff out of the way. We got John stuff out of the way. His Girls Gone Wild spring break that consisted of the Dungeons and Dragons movie. And we got my stuff out of the way. So I guess we should talk some Transformers. Purpose of this podcast will be tackling all of Marvel's Transformers comics in order, starting with issue 1 and working our way to the series end at issue 80. We will answer any questions that are brought up to the best of our ability and see how these books we loved as a kid hold up to our eyes as an adult now. This podcast is guaranteed to be, you guessed it, more than meets the eye. So Pat, John, Maggie, let's see what happens with the return of Optimus Aloysius Prime. Sort of. Right after this break.
The Transformers will return after these messages.
We got it all together for a brand new show. The LBC crew is here, and so away we go. While the LBC crew is running from a spooky ghost, Christatos is doing what he does the most. Hey, come on, get involved till the mystery is solved. Hang around with the LBC crew. Oh, hey, come on, get involved till the mystery is solved. Hang around with the LBC crew. That's the podcast. LBC crew.
We now return to the Transformers.
Welcome back. The issue we'll be covering today is Transformers issue 40. Halfway done, y'all. And here's John with the cover description.
All right. God, I wish I knew more Pretenders songs. I could have worked one of them into this, but okay. Fortress Maximus is removing his head in the corner box underneath the Marvel logo in a pink background. The Transformers logo is in a nice blue with a red trim. There is also red saying that it is introducing the, and then in green in large block letters it says pretenders. Below this we see a few of these pretenders, which is good that it tells us this. Otherwise we might be mistaken in thinking that a couple of our He-Man guys had gotten out of the toy box and wandered over to play with our Transformers. But we have a couple of the aforementioned Decepticon pretenders. I don't remember which one is which, and neither will you. One of them looks kind of like a bat thing, and the other one looks like a skull goatee Orcus from D&D thing with a gun. Off to one side, there's what looks only like maybe a Micronaut, I guess. They're all standing in some sort of control panel room, which is drawn pretty rad. And it's shaded in different shades of yellow, which is to a nice effect. But in a computer panel in the background, we see the reason that you bought this issue. The face of none other than Optimus Aloysius Prime. And if we didn't notice that, or believe it, the arrow right next to it says, "At last, the return of Optimus Prime," and an exclamation point. It's so excited about it. And trademark also. There's a trademark under Optimus Prime. That's great. Let's see. This cover is pretty rad despite itself. I don't find the Pretender designs all that interesting, and they seem extremely out of place in a Transformers novel or a Transformers comic book. But the and probably the reason they put him here, Optimus Prime on the cover, though, suddenly makes me forget all that and makes me grab the thing, and I'm already on my way to the checkout counter. So I will ponder what else I think about this and pass it to someone else. Delvin, what did you, or Delvin's eating. Pat, what did you think of this?
Well, I think you kind of hit it on the head there with these pretenders, their characters. I think when you said He-Man characters, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what they remind me of when I look at them. I'm like, there was something about these, the way they're shaped and what they look like. I'm like, these look familiar to me, and they look like they could just be straight out of the He-Man show, which isn't that bad. I found that their design's a little interesting. I don't know what a pretender is. Well, I kind of knew now, but when I first read the cover, I'm like, I don't know what a pretender is. What's going on here? But what really grabs you is the Optimus Prime in that monitor there and the big arrow pointing with his name on it. Other than that, the colors are pretty cool. Not bad. And just the total line work that had to be done on that control panel, that whole, it's a full wall of control panel.
Yeah, for sure.
That someone had to sit there and, the inker probably like, son of a...
Someone had to sit and draw that, man.
Yeah, and then somebody
and then Yom Top takes a look at that. Nope, yellow.
Yeah, like doing that yellow. But it works. It works. It works. Definitely.
It does work, and it gives it kind of that, like it makes it look like it's trying to look computer generated.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I think definitely. Maggie, what do you think?
I think it's really flippin' striking. I think it's the colors, the kind of pale yellow, and then this purple and magenta kind of combination we have on the two biggest figures. The little one in the back almost gets lost.
Yeah.
But like my first thought actually was extreme 90s. Like how this is really kind of towing that line where in the 90s comics were just all muscles everywhere all the time. Muscles all the way down. And that's kind of what I sort of got like that vibe from it at first. I also feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of feel like revealing Optimus Prime's return on the cover is like spoiling a big reveal in a trailer for a movie. Like, I mean, obviously that's a big thing that's going to get people to want to buy the comic book. I understand that. But at the same time, like, I feel like that could have been a really cool moment to reveal in the book itself without letting anyone know first.
I think so. It's a cheat, though. It's a classic bait and switch. I mean, it's not a complete cheat. Optimus is in it, but you're like, Optimus Prime, I'm buying this. Mm-hmm. Hey, that's a fairly common thing. But
it's getting the gears going in that direction, at least.
I personally think they had to, because I don't think anyone would have picked up this. A lot of people that would just a random casual fan wouldn't have picked it up if it was just these pretenders.
Mm-hmm.
Pat, what do you think about that?
I kind of do agree with Maggie on that part, that I wouldn't have probably put his face on there I would have probably put, but use a disclaimer as, and guess who's back? Something like that.
Ethan Zachary.
Yeah.
Something to go, oh, what's that? Like,
Yeah.
But I don't, like I said, I don't know who these pretenders are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
After
I
reading
didn't.
this, I still don't know who they are.
For sure, I have more questions.
Yeah, I thought I had headmaster questions. I got pretender
I think
questions.
I got the headmasters I can understand now.
Yeah, they're not as bad as the headmasters, in my opinion.
What'd you think of this thing, Delvin?
Yeah, what'd you think, Delvin?
There are a lot of colors for sure. And I think at this point, you're along for the ride when it comes to the Transformers. Again, I mentioned, all right, this is halfway point. So 40 of 80. Not that anyone knew that it was going to go 80 issues when it came out, but still. But they threw a lot of colors on here. Like the Transformers logo was kind of a weird color. It's like a light blue with a red trim on it. And then the Pretenders was in green. And then one of the Pretender robots was like mainly yellow, and the main background was kind of yellow. And then the floor and the screen that was showing Optimus Prime in it was orange. So I was like, good grief, there's just colors everywhere. Then the Marvel corner box with Fortress Maximus was pink. So it's just a lot of different colors. But right, it all pales in comparison because, they had a very cool arrow and then it has Optimus Prime on it. And you're right, that is going to be what draws anyone to the book, even if you happen to buy the Pretender Transformers, of which I think I may have had one or two as a kid, then you're still not going to pick it up because of the Pretenders. You're going to pick it up because Optimus Prime is presumably in the book. So we know what the selling point here is. Not that that's a bad thing. So I kind of disagree with Maggie in that, like, if you were worried that somebody were going to pick up the book and you wanted to get some people picking up the book, you want them to pick up a book because the character that hadn't been around in a year and 4 months time was back, sort of. but we're going to get to that. But first, we should rate this thing on a scale of 1 to 10, like we do here on Transformers Chronicles, just like the tech specs of old, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, to describe what we think about where this cover should be rated. And we'll start with Pat. Pat, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate this cover?
I like the colors. And again, I like the looks of the character. I mean, it's drawn really good characters. There's a lot of detail on this one. And so I'm at an 8. I think with the picture of Prime 2, I'm at an 8.
Okay, cool. And just mentioning, I mean, we're going to mention cover credits, but Jose Delbo drew the cover. And so he is continuing to get his feet wet in the Transformers verse. We'll move to John. John, what would you rate this cover?
I'm a little lower than that. I'm going to give it a 6. It's, I like a lot of it in the line work and things. It's just, it seems a little too busy, and the overuse of color, the more I look at it, gets a little too loud, and the overuse of yellow winds up causing the Autobot Pretender to get almost lost in the thing. But it's a decent cover. It's, it does its job. It would have made me buy it and stuff, but it's like better than average, but not one of the greats. So a 6.
We'll pass it to Maggie.
I had my answer, and then John maybe go, I wonder. I'm going to split the difference. I'm going to go with the 7, because I do think it is well drawn, for absolute sure. It is a little bit busy, but I think Skull Grin is actually pretty friggin' cool. I think he's actually really kind of cool looking. Like Mad Max gone wild kind of a thing would be this guy, like with spikes on his knees and big gun. But it is busy. There is a lot of color usage going on here, and the arrow pointing to Optimus's head is a little cheesy. So we'll go with the 7. Delvin, what do you think?
See, I'm okay with cheesy. I mean, because we always say, as one of our taglines about, awesome, wacky, sometimes corny, right? The arrow reminded me a little bit of what they would do in some Spidey comic books in the Silver Age time.
Oh, yeah.
Where X-Men a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm. Where sometimes, like, either it's like they want to point your attention towards a certain hero or villain, or sometimes they'll shroud that hero or villain in the shadows, just so you might want to guess as to who it is. But in this case, they gave up the game. They said it was Optimus Prime, and Jose and company did a great job on Optimus Prime in that screen. Optimus Prime, that head is just iconic, and it looked really cool. And that is the coolest thing on the cover. But that said, the skull grin being up front, he's a very distinctive Decepticon pretender, so that was a good choice for him to put up front. And I think Jose Delbo and I think Dave Hunt, the inker, did a very good job of drawing them. And the other two were just very distinct as well. So I'm at a 7 myself. I didn't think it was great, but I did think it would stand out in its own way. So I did like it. And the big selling point, of course, is Optimus Prime, and just seeing him back for the first time in a Transformers comic book in well over a year. It was a welcome sight to see. And with that, we will give it to Pat, and he'll give us the credits for the issue.
All right. Well, we'll be covering Transformers issue number 40. Its on sale date was January 26, 1988. Cover date was May 1988. Cover price was $1. Story is by Bob Budiansky. Pencils go to Jose Delbo. Inks, Dave Hunt. Colors, Nielsen Yamtov. Letters, Bill Oakley. And editor is Don Daly. The cover credits that we went over before was by Jose Delbo. This is all brought to you by Mike's Amazing World and tfwiki.net. Thank you. And back to you, Delvin.
Sweet. Thanks, Pat. And now it's time for the synopsis. In a world where things are not what they seem, it is a world.
Transformers, more than meets the eye. Autobots wage their battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons. Transformers. Robots in disguise. Transformers. More than meets the eye.
The Transformers from Marvel Comics.
The title of this issue was Pretender to the Throne. What happened to Buster? What happened to Blaster? What happened to Daisy? She's a teddy bear, remember? Will we find out what happened to them in this issue? Nope. Be patient, we will. There's more to add to the story that's been building, and these past few episodes have focused on the Nebulon Transformer contingency, but now we have one addition to the mix. Optimus Prime. Sort of. What? Remember when he blowed up in a video game simulation turned real? Well, Ethan Zachary kept his memory alive and has had him in a video game simulation and has desperately tried to convince Optimus Prime of who he really is. His efforts in contacting people leads Goldbug, newly revived thanks to Team Fort Max, to Ethan, who then sends video game Optimus through the cyber realm to spy on the Nebulos Decepticons, who infiltrated a genetics lab. Why are the Decepticons at a genetics lab? Creating a new strain of Decepticons called Pretenders. Thanks to Optimus VG, that's video game for short, I got tired of saying it, he uses the tech, and through Goldbug and the Nebulons, they create Pretenders of their own. Since the Decepticons now know where the Autobots are thanks to tracking Optimus VG, the new Decepticon Pretenders go and face off against the Autobot Pretenders, and thanks to Optimus VG, the Autobots whoop some butt. Real world and OVG, I shortened it again, this time for comedic effect, whoops on Scorponok in virtual reality. OVG has learned that Autobots are truly heroic champions, but still thinks he's in a video game. Let's talk about the book. On Transformers Chronicles, we take turns bringing up something from the comics, starting with, but not limited to, goods and bads, and then everyone discuss this. We're going to start with Pat. Pat, give us something you want to talk about from the book.
Well, first of all, I want to say I love it when OVG caught that one-handed pass in the end zone like that. Oh, wait, that's OBJ, yeah.
Excuse me, OBJ, excuse me.
Yeah, that's.
I always called him ODB, but it did not stick. ODB is old dirty bastard. And you know what? OBJ, yes. That's who that was.
But you know, I'm trying to think about this. Like in my mind and in my car, I can't rewind. We've gone so far, you know. Pictures came and they broke my heart. I just can't believe that.
I don't know any Pretenders songs, and I feel like
Delvin, no.
That the video game killed the Transformers
Radio
star.
Star. Was that the Pretenders?
No, he's in a different wavelength.
Yeah. Anyway,
I laughed.
I thank you, John. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Ooh, get it? Video killed their. Anyway, so Optimus is back, right?
Yes. Video game.
Sort of.
It'd be video, and then in parentheses, game. Killed the radio star.
Killed the Transformers star.
Featuring Pat.
Yeah. Anyway. So Optimus is kind of back, which is kind of cool. When I wonder how long they've been kind of sitting. Well, obviously they've been sitting on this for a while, but did it take them that long to I kind of like to know, did they know they were going to bring him back kind of in this way? Or were they going to, was it just something they kind of figured out, like, oh, we got to bring Optimus back. Let's bring him back in this kind of a way. Remember way back then, how he got killed, but we saw kind of what happened. And I don't know. It was interesting. I want to see now, how do they get him out and into a body again?
Any guesses?
Well,
let's just assume, okay? Let's assume that
they shot
Optimus
his body
Prime,
into space, right?
They did. They shot his body into space. But I mean, so let's assume, right, that Optimus Prime is not going to spend the rest of this Transformers series as a video game simulation.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think he's going to get out of his body? Any guesses?
Well, they're going to have to download it into somewhere. Probably some with all the headmastery kind of magic-y, doohickey, and pretender doohickey stuff, whatever. They put him in a big tube and he comes back. Fill it with oil, and then they come back.
I have to do things like this, Pat, because one of these days, John is going to go back to previously on the Transformers, and then he's gonna play that quote. Maybe not. Maggie, do you have any guesses? Let's just assume, that we're not going to see the last of Optimus Prime in this issue because it's Optimus Prime, and that he's going to come back. Do you have any guesses how he's going to come back?
I mean, at the drop of the hat, the Autobots made pretender Autobots in this issue, so I imagine they can just whip up a body for him.
They whipped up a Goldbug body.
I mean, Goldbug got a new body. I would imagine it wouldn't be any different than to get Optimus Prime a new body. It's just that his brain's on a floppy disk.
They made Fortress Maximus a whole new freaking head. It's
gonna need a disk drive, like maybe in the back of the head or something. But I guess because it's been done before, it almost doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal because Bumblebee got blowed up and then got put in a new body. Then Optimus got blowed up and then he gets put in a new body. Gold Optimus Bug. Optimus Gold
Optimus Bug. Optimus Goldbug. Got it.
I have a
Prime
guess
Bug.
on how.
You don't get to guess. You know the answer. That's not guessing.
Yes,
spoiling.
John. Yeah. We're not going to go to you with your guess. Yeah, even though I can tell you when, but I can't exactly remember how it happened. Not exactly. So I'm looking forward to seeing when that happens, but I won't give up the game yet. I can't. I wouldn't dare. I mean, even though these comic books are now heavy sigh, 35 years old or so, I still don't want to give up. Let's go to John. John, what do you want to mention about the book?
Well, first of all, I will point out that this issue is by far the most blatant Hasbro stepping in and going, we have 12 new characters you need to introduce in this issue. But even with that, they still managed to make a really fun story around that. I mean, the Pretenders themselves are a little substandard, and I think Bob even realized that with this, and so he managed. I don't know if Hasbro got on the horn and said you got to put these new toys in here, because I checked, and the Pretenders were actually not quite out on the market yet. It was one of those rare times where the comic book managed to debut the character before the toy. So this might have been Hasbro, pushing it to get it in there to like launch their new toys, because Hasbro put a lot of faith in their Pretenders to carry the line forward from this point on. So we'll see how that works. So I don't know if if he had planned to incorporate this with his Return of Optimus Prime story all along, or if he just was tossed these characters and had to incorporate them in there and just kind of shoehorned them in there like that. But either way, he managed to take what would be a rather perfunctory introduction and make it into something really fun. So I like that.
Of course, I give Bob Budiansky all the credit in the world. I mean, I'm sure that most of these ideas that he came up with, Hasbro came to him and said, you got to introduce this toy. And then he went home and he drank several beers. And he's like, how the heck am I going to do this? And in what scenario that this even seems plausibly believable?
Yeah.
And he finds a way. I mean, I didn't think the story, given that we're talking about gigantic robots and whatnot, I thought that the story itself held water. But enough of me talking. We haven't gotten to Maggie yet. Maggie, what do you want to bring up about this story?
I demand better accommodations for Sparkplug Witwicky. He has been complaining about that TV for 2 issues now. Wasn't he? Actually, that was going to be a question. I think he was complaining about the TV when Spike showed up in his trench coat. Actually, I wanted to just kind of give a general shout out to the quality of the art in the issue. It was.
Oh yes.
It's very good art. It was really good. It was good to read. I liked the panels with Optimus like inside the proto internet. In the cables connected to the computers, I guess, whatever in his cyber world that he exists in. I thought that was all really cool. I think it was all very well done.
It's so cool, and it is
It's
so
very
80s.
neat.
It
It's
is so
very
1980s what they thought, the cyberverse was. It's really, really cool.
For sure.
If I may, though, quickly, I must apologize to the late Senator Ted Stevens of Alaska, because looking at this, apparently the internet is a series of tubes.
Yeah, he was right. It was
that Optimus Prime is using to get from point A to point B. So sorry for mocking you every day of your life while you were still around. Rest in peace there, Senator. You are vindicated by a comic book.
And I do think that, especially if you were a kid and in the 80s when computers were basically magic, and I mean, to me, they still pretty much just are magic. This would seem like a really cool plot with Optimus being stuck in a computer, like trapped in a video game, and he doesn't quite remember who he is. From an adult perspective, I find that a little dark. But I think if you were a kid, that would seem pretty cool.
I think as an adult that it's still pretty cool. I was kind of impressed.
Oh, it is cool.
Yeah, I was kind of impressed with the whole everything of the story about not only was Optimus Prime a video game character, but he was able to traverse basically through what was the internet and through Ethan Zachary's genius and hacked into everything. So I thought that was cool. What about you, Pat? Did you have anything about like just that aspect of the story?
Well, see, technically, Delvin, being a computer technical person myself, I find it really hard to believe that Optimus Prime's brain was only on a 1.44 floppy disk.
Calm down,
I would think
Pat.
there'd be at least some gigabytes and
maybe
1.44.
That's what Pat said. 1.44.
1.4
was an early floppy disk. Maybe he faxed him. Maybe he faxed Optimus Prime to the genetic research lab.
Could possibly have done that, but I hardly doubt it.
Facts, sure. But.
It was interesting what they did. And, it just made me feel kind of warm and fun inside. It's like, 80s, and just what we know now. And, again, you're seeing what they thought the internet was at the time, or just the world that was around them at the time.
Computer stories in the 80s were so funny because, the personal computers were, becoming something that more and more people were buying. And then, so like every TV show had a computer storyline or whatever. And it was like the writers had no idea what computers could do. That the computers could do anything. You buy a computer, you're suddenly, War Games has Matthew Broderick hacking into the defense grid on his IBM personal computer and all of this.
Yeah.
Just, even as a kid, I was like, okay, there's no way this is possible. Because, I was 13 years old and I knew it. Now I'm like, this is great. This is standard for anything Marvel computers at the time.
Yeah, it's this cool idea that, he saved him, downloaded him to, let's just say he downloaded him into something. If you just kind of kept it in that kind of a sense, not hey, you put them on in our day and age, he put them on a flash drive, right? And he took them from the flash drive and went to his computer and, because he's a big computer geek and he knows this Ethan guy knows what he's doing. He built it all and okay, that's believable. And he downloaded them and he's trying to get them back, or at least get his artificial intelligence now. And we know how much AI is taking over now. So yeah, this is kind of interesting, really, what they were thinking way back then of what this stuff could do.
Yeah, just in itself, I think it's fascinating. I would love to know if Bob were just like, oh yeah, I heard this thing about computers. Let's tie it in that way. But since Optimus Prime was blown up in issue 24, and if you remember, at the end of issue 24, Ethan Zachary had kind of hinted a little bit because he sort of had a disc and he was putting it away like, I'm going to figure out something to do with this. So he seemed to have had this planned for quite some time and kept it in his back pocket and waited until the right time to reveal it. So I would love to know if we were ever to have a conversation with Mr. Budiansky about whether or not he had this whole thing storyboarded, because sometimes writers do that to where it's like, well, you know what? I have issues 1 through 50 storyboarded where this is going to happen in this arc, this is going to happen in this arc, this is going to happen in this arc. So yeah, I would be very interested in learning exactly why. And to any fans, because we have very smart and knowledgeable fans in Transformers Chronicles, please write in and let us know. We would love to read anything that you may or may not know about what Bob was planning at this point for issue 40 and bringing Optimus Prime back, at least in part, because he's not back in full. We've only got the cyber image of Optimus Prime, who isn't fully aware of who he is yet. Anyway, let's do one more round. Pat, start us off again. Anything else you want to talk about from the book?
Well, we talked a lot about Prime already, so let's go ahead to the other kind of story that was going on with Scorponok and the Pretenders on either sides. They had to bring in more characters. It took me a while to understand, like, what are these things? So they're just a shell, and then they break open, and there's a robot inside. It's like an Easter egg that opens up, and hey, there's a toy inside here.
Yes.
That's all it was. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Pat is suitably disappointed.
That was their brand new super idea.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a great toy.
No, it doesn't.
All I'm saying, though, is let's not knock too much on the idea of the Pretenders, because in the future, there's going to be a Pretender that's going to have a very major role to play in the Transformers universe.
Really?
I'll just leave it at that.
Not because of his or a Pretender combiner, actually.
Ooh.
You already know who he is.
No.
You just haven't seen him as a Pretender.
So
right, well.
but that's it. Like I thought they explained the idea well enough. Scorponok kind of said, I had no idea of what he thought life on Earth was like, but he's like, Transformers might see these, or the Autobots might see these things, and they're not Decepticons, and then surprise, D-head, we actually are Decepticons. Yeah.
Oh no.
So yeah, that was his idea, and it wasn't a bad one, just kind of weirdly executed, but not bad. Not bad.
Was it not a bad one though? Because it seems, I don't know. The Autobots follow up though. All right, so what we'll do
is just copy them.
We'll copy them, but what we'll do instead is make us look like humans, but very big.
Yeah. That does seem like a really strange
and it like that aspect of it fooled them the only time it ever will. At one point, it's like, hey, there's a bunch of humans standing there.
Well, one of them does say it's that they seem a little big for humans.
And then they go, well, that means their defeat will be bigger.
Yeah, so it half worked. But like, if the Decepticons didn't just say, yeah, we want to smash, then they would have gotten away, or they would have been able to spot that maybe they're being ambushed. So there is that.
Yeah, I think it was, all in all, it was a good combination of the two storylines that were happening, I think.
Okay. Nice. Let's go to John again. John, is there anything else you want to bring up?
I'm just trying to think of what if I want to say anything else about these pretenders or not. It's just I don't know. I like the idea of what the plan was more than the execution of the idea of what the plan was. Having Optimus Prime there, as their field general to be able to tell them all this stuff, and then they'll be able to win. That was cool. But basically, their plan seemed to be run away and then split apart and then fire at them. And then when the Decepticons did the same thing, they said they were ready for that. Well, of course they were ready for that. You guys, they just did the same thing you guys just did. And then they shoot. And then once Optimus Prime's back, then they're gone. But I'm not really sure. So their shells can still shoot then.
Oh, okay. Apparently. I was going to say, so what happens when the shells, do they go back together and then you got like...
Yeah, they apparently go back together and they shoot, but I don't understand because they're hollow.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how durable they would be or what this... I don't know.
They have some durability and the robot can control the pretender shell.
All right.
You might be coming back to that point later too.
Okay. Yeah, I was just that was some of the little parts I was confused on. Is like, okay, so you come out of your shell, now you got this. Do you got to go back and pick up your clothes or whatever you just took off? That you gotta.
No, they can control it and do things, but it just looks so weird. I gotta credit the technology of the Autobots on the Steelhaven though, to be able to whip up a bunch of tubes to be able to copy the Decepticons' technology that they themselves needed to find a special chemical plant in order to create. Luckily, they had the materials on hand, apparently.
That is a very, very, what's a good word? They have a lot of stuff on that ship. Whatever the words for that. Like they had enough to double or quadruple the size of Fort Max. They were able to fully assemble a brand new gold bug, and they were able to craft pretender shells. That is a very resourceful ship that Nebulons and the Transformers have.
Yeah, I'm telling you, getting Optimus Prime back into a body is going to be no big thing. Super easy, barely an inconvenience.
I know what the first panel of the next issue is.
Is it Optimus Prime in a new body? Having been put in it off
I know
panel?
what next issue's previously on Transformers is going to be.
At this point, it's not even letting the cat out of the bag to say he's going to come back at some point because they want to introduce him again, right? I mean, you're not going to introduce Optimus Prime and it's like, oh, man, those were the days. And then he just goes away, right? That's not going to happen. So, but how he comes back remains to be seen. But I did get some good quotes from Pat and Maggie about it. Speaking of Maggie, finish us out. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about in the book?
Mostly, I'm just looking forward to what happens next. I think that they did do a good job with what they had to do with introducing so many characters, because at this point, it does get a little boring having to go through panels introducing people by name, and then the names of all their guns that they use.
Yeah, they really...
This is the slime gun, the swag gun,
guns. Yeah.
The grease gun, but I'm keen to find out what happens to Optimus Prime. I am hooked on that plot line.
It was an interesting one to introduce because at this point, we have quite a few dangling storylines. And to me, the biggest one is Blaster. In our heads, he's been hovering out there in space surrounded by Dinobots for about, 4 issues now?
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Those kids haven't been returned to their families yet.
Yeah. They need lunch. Or
They
something,
need lunch.
snacks.
They need naps.
Yeah, naps, yeah.
Probably a hug.
There's no bathroom.
Heck, I need naps and a hug too,
Or
just generally speaking. But that has nothing to do with the comic book. So they picked now to introduce Optimus Prime back into it. So I have no idea how Optimus Prime is going to fit back into this, but he's going to have to because it's Optimus Prime. So he's going to have to find some way to fit back into it. That's for sure.
There are a lot of players on the board now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of players on this board of who's where, who's doing what, and all these new characters introduced. And I'm sure they're going to introduce probably 50 more as we go along here. So they got to figure out a way to kind of get control. Because right now, it was probably, 3-4 factions going on now? Something like that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I have faith in Bob Budiansky. I'll say that much because he did this at the start, kind of had this big magnum opus of once it was clear the book was going to get off the ground. And at one point there was Optimus Head here, and you had Buster Witwicky in control of the Matrix, and he was creating Jetfire and everything and disassembling them and all this stuff. So there's a lot of craziness going on, and he brought it together and brought it to a good end of a storyline and conclusion. So I can say this much. I'm not spoiling anything. If you saw the end of the issue, they told you what was going to finally happen next issue. So that seems like it's going to be a pretty big one. And then I can tell you 42 is going to be big too. 2 big ones coming up. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. We should continue talking about issue 40 here. And I think we're done with the discussion. I seen mixed reviews on the Pretenders. Like everyone, like Pat was kind of wanting a little bit more. John was just simply not impressed. Maggie's kind of somewhere in the middle as far as the Pretenders. You had Ethan Zachary, but not really worth mentioning him other than it was cool that he's kind of come up a little bit. He had his own business, so good for him on that. We had the return of Optimus Prime, and we had the Nebulon contingencies. We have yet to see how this all ties in, but I think we're going to soon. I am going to move us on to see who had the touch, where we talk about which character in the book stood out the most, be it Autobot, Decepticon, or human. John, you're up. Who had the touch?
I am going to give the touch to the greatest computer programmer known to humanity and Paragon in getting fired and falling up, Ethan Zachary. Can you imagine what the next day of his job must have been at the last place he worked? Now explain this again. How did the Omega Hydron get killed? And why did where did the explosions come up, and why is everything on fire? Okay. But he went from that to starting his own computer company and has made himself a bunch of, looks like a series of really cool looking video games. Man, I forgot how much better video games were in the 1980s. But still then manages to, it's not only what he's able to do, it's why he's able to do it. He is driven along with Goldbug on this mission to getting Optimus Prime to remember who he is, which he's convinced that is the more heroic things he's able to do, then that'll snap him into it. And so he finds all of these ways, and then when they hit roadblocks, he comes up with new plans and they work it out. And he was kind of the driving force to all of this. And if Optimus Prime does find his way back to the land of the living and the leadership of the Autobots, everybody's got Ethan Zachary to thank for it, which is good because the reason he's not there right now, we have Ethan Zachary to blame for it. So, but today he gets the touch.
Take a bow, Ethan Zachary. What about you, Pat? Who had the touch?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Optimus with his leadership. You know, he showed it again, even though he doesn't even know he knows he has it, but he just doesn't know who he totally is yet. But yeah, Optimus, he had the touch in this one, led the way.
Always good to see Optimus leading the way. And I'll jump in real quick. I agree with you. I have Optimus Prime sort of as he had the touch. I love how Bob, you could tell he was having a little bit of fun with Optimus Prime and just had him doing this over the top heroic Jingo speech at the start of it. Like, as there's no pit dark enough, there's no evil low enough, and all this stuff. And that was fun. But sure enough, like the character of Optimus Prime himself, even stripped of the memories of being the leader of the Autobots plus 4 million years of history, was still enough to take down Scorponok because he knew his character and what he was in the game so well. And I was appreciative of that. Maggie, who had the touch to you?
Yeah, I wanted to give the touch to the Autobots because I feel like Autobot wins are few and far between. It seems like oftentimes the Decepticons have the upper hand over the Autobots. And in this one, they get a solid win by using the Decepticons' own plan against them, turning the tables. We're not going to quibble about how they were able to pull that off as quickly as they were. They just did it. So I'm going to give the touch to the Autobots.
The Decepticons did not have Optimus VG on their side, OVG for short. So like he's the one that made all the difference. That plus Goldbug. Oh, one more quick thing. It was really cool that they mentioned a couple of things about Goldbug, right? One, that he's good at surveillance, and two, that he's known for his visual acuity. Those are things right off of his tech specs. And I was like, that Bob Budiansky with that little bit of a little cap tip there for Goldbug. Both of those things are very true about Bumblebee or Goldbug.
He seems a little bit different in this one as well, too, now that he's Goldbug. You know what I mean? He's gotten a little more aggressiveness, or just, you know, a little more, he's just more, I guess, in his character.
Well, but that too is a part of his character arc. Goldbug, I don't know if John, have you covered Goldbug as far as one of the spotlights before?
Mm-hmm. We talked at length about him.
Yeah, Goldbug is a little bit more of a confident version of Bumblebee.
And his strength is 9 too, so he's got, you know, bringing more power to it. But yeah, his whole, that's part of the story arc. They did say in the G.I. Joe comic where it happened, he goes and gives a speech about how much more confident he is now, and it's a major part.
So yeah, Pat, you were on to something. If we've talked about the touch, then someone had to be out of touch. We talk about the character that was the worst in the book and should be hit with a massive data surge. Oh no! In the segment, Pat, who to you was less than meets the eye?
We're gonna go with Sparkplug Wiki. You know, he's just an angry guy right now. It's like this is the second opportunity someone's come to you to say, "Hey, I got this going on and I need your help," and you just kind of shove them away. You know, and
I'm
it's
so
like,
glad
come on,
you
dude.
said Sparkplug, because I wanted to say Sparkplug too.
It's like, come on. You know, here's your opportunity to go, oh yeah, give me something to do instead of sitting here in this house. You know, you complain that your house got burned down, you got attacked, you got blah, blah, blah. Well, do something about it then, you big idiot. Go and work with the people that, you know, I don't care about Optimus Prime. He's your ticket, man. You can go help them, and you can go fix the Autobots, you know, go work on cars again.
His point of view, he, like, the first thing he did was offer to help him, and ever since that moment, his life has been terrible. So,
But, like, his heart attack wasn't Optimus Prime's fault.
no, it was Jazz's fault.
And his house burning down wasn't Optimus Prime's fault.
No, it was Ratbat's fault.
And Buster
Going
getting
after.
kidnapped wasn't Optimus Prime's fault. So I'm with Pat. I think his anger is... I think he's redirecting his anger at the television set to Optimus Prime.
That could be.
Yeah, okay, but here's an opportunity. You're friends with these guys. Well, you know, why not make friends with these big robots that can help you find your kid?
Yeah, get
And
your
talk to the
kid
other kid,
back.
you know?
Why your child has been kidnapped? Your other son that came back from college, like, randomly decided to transform himself into a part machine,
Yeah.
and you're just stuck
Sitting
in a
at-
room.
He is still processing.
mad at a
that, to be
television
fair.
Yeah,
set.
exactly. Sitting there mad
Get
at
up
the
and do
TV.
something.
Yeah.
No, I think
So-
he should find O and go wherever he is.
I know. Adopt O. Get
O's
a new
probably got a
son.
better life right now. O's
I'm
probably
sure he
like,
does. He's nowhere near any of this.
Yeah, O faded off into obscurity. O at this point might have a wife and 2 kids, O Jr. and O the Third. You never know.
Yeah.
John, before we get too sidetracked in the Chronicles of O, who was less than meets the eye to you?
I am going to have to give it to Goldbug. Now, hear me out on this. Goldbug, despite being great in almost all ways and getting the job done, did at one point tell an unnecessary white lie just to look good. He mentioned that he was present when they launched Optimus Prime's body into the sun. And if you go back to issue 26, you will find that Goldbug, in fact, was not listed among those that were present there. Probably because he was just a pile of scrap after being blown up by the G.I. Joes a little bit earlier. The continuity there's a little freaking weird. Now, I wasn't going to mention that at all because I was like, that is just the weird, woolliest thing, and nobody would mention that. But then when I went over to the wiki, it's mentioned there. So I figured, oh, okay, so I'm justified. So since I didn't really think anybody had it very bad today, I'm going to give it to Goldbug's white lie. Goldbug, if you're feeling so confident now, maybe you can just show a little more honesty.
I tell you what, I kind of forgot about that. I took Goldbug at face value on that. I was like, maybe he was there, but no, you're right. He was off on that mission with Blaster, I think.
No, this was even before that. I mean, that the mission with Blaster happened after that. it's kind of weird to try to figure out where G.I. Joe versus the Transformers can go.
Oh, yeah.
Because it can't actually fit anywhere. It was an unfortunate time to have the crossover because, like, in both titles, you had leaders dying. So, like, they started the story and then had to mess with it. It wasn't the greatest crossover anyway. But, yeah, that was there, and I noticed that.
I should probably say myself, who was less emaciated, and I'll go with Scorponok. Scorponok just got plain outwitted, and that is something that he hasn't done. Like, I give him credit, like when he was in that big battle with Fort Max, where he kind of looked around and was like, we are getting our butts kicked. Oh, yeah, the human. and he picked on the human, and he caused Galen to wind up sacrificing himself. In this case, he sent his guys out, and he just totally got outmatched by Optimus Prime, who, to be fair, is the best leader that the Autobots have ever had, but still. And then got outsmarted himself by a video game simulation of Optimus Prime. So, yeah, it wasn't Scorponok's finest hour as a Decepticon commander, at least by default. But you know, maybe he sees better days, maybe not. But I've mentioned before, we're going to see Scorponok for a while now, so you better get used to him. Whether you like him or not, he's going to be around for a bit. And so with that, we're going to go to the overall ratings for the book, 1 to 10, 10 being the best. Describe how we feel about this issue, and we'll start with Maggie this time. Maggie, what would you rate Transformers issue 40?
Ooh, that's a very good question, Delvin. I wish you'd asked somebody else. I'm gonna say,
John, what would you rate the book?
What? Oh man, I was gonna see what Maggie was gonna say. You know what? I'm gonna give this a 6. No, you know what? The art bumps it to a 7. The art in this is pretty good. He is really starting to fire.
I honestly think the art in this is very good.
The art is incredible, and you'll see by next issue he's got it all together. Not spoiling too much to say that next issue is my favorite visual issue of the series, but he's really got some good stuff. The Pretenders, I'm never gonna like them. I might like individuals, like Delvin said on it, but even as a kid, I was like, what are these things? And I didn't like them. I think they're kind of silly here. The Optimus Prime story, bringing him back, is great. It's fun to see a lot of the action and the other stuff there. So all that comes together to be a 7. And I think I'm probably downgrading it a little bit because I know that I'm going to rate the next two pretty high. But 7 for me on this one.
7 for John. Pat, what would you rate Transformers 40?
I am going to stay matched with my cover rating and go with an 8. I did enjoy the story. I enjoyed the cyber aspect of it, and the fight between Prime and Scorponok, and the Pretenders. A little wacky, but from that story point, it made sense of what kind of was going on. So he did the best what they could, and it was fun.
Gotcha. I will go next. Yeah, I'm between that 7 or 8 myself, and since we don't do halvesies here on the show unless Joe Thomas is around, I'll give it a 7. No, I'll give it an 8. I like the presentation of Optimus Prime and how they didn't just magically give him back. They gave a little bit of a difficulty and a little bit of a barrier. Yeah, he's still not back, but they ended with a when's the next mission? Yeah, he still thinks that he's a video game character. Yeah. But we got the essence of him back, and that was awesome. And I was impressed with Bob and the inventiveness of this story. The medium of which he put it under was very impressive for a book that came out, what was this, 1989? Yeah, I was impressed with that too. So that plus artwork plus Optimus Prime gives it an 8. And there are, as John has mentioned, very good issues coming up, which might be getting full marks, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. And Maggie, you got the full courtesy of having all 3 of the guys go first.
Woo-hoo!
The floor is yours.
I'm going to give it a 7. I'm going to stick with my cover rating too. I think a 7. The art really does go a long ways. The Pretenders thing just really didn't do it for me. It was just so very obviously, here's new toys and their guns. And that really took me out of it. But Optimus Prime being somewhat slightly back, being back adjacent, was cool. And again, the art was great. And Sparkplug made me giggle. So we'll give it a 7.
All right. We got 7s and 8s, which is putting the book at good territories. I'm glad that everyone is still on board with the book. And with that, we can and never will leave you without John's segment of the show called Transformer Spotlight, where he discusses a particular Transformer which was featured in today's issue. All yours, John.
I am scrolling.
I think you do it every time, and it's so funny.
Yep, I forget it every
I saw you remember.
single time.
And you knew that you didn't have it up. And I think you do it every time. I love you.
Oh, I love you too. Did they hear all of that cuteness?
Wow.
Oh, they did. Good.
I think it's cute that she lets you do it, even though that she knows you're doing it.
Yeah. Oh, crap. I had it and I just lost it again. All right, here we go. All right, today we go with somebody's favorite pretender, presumably Skullgrin. Here's what the back of his toy says. His allegiance is Decepticon, subgroup Pretender. His function is Siege Warrior. His motto is, "Those who stand against me shall soon fall before me." All right. A brutal, uncontrollable engine of destruction! Exclamation point. Doesn't stop attacking until everything is destroyed! Exclamation point. Never retreats from danger. Oh, period. Okay. Usually communicates in a series of snorts and snarls. In creature shell, wields a double Slagmaker laser and metal rending vibro sword. Without shell, transforms into a shrapnel blasting assault tank! Exclamation point. His stats are, on a scale of 1 to 10, his strength is 9, his intelligence is 9, his speed is 4, his endurance is 9, his rank is 6, his courage is 10, his firepower is 8, and his skill is 5. Oh, this guy's pretty nasty. With the amount of exclamation points on these specs, you're forgiven in thinking that you were getting a pretty amazing toy with Skullgrin, but unfortunately, Skullgrin is a pretender. He was typical of the Pretender toys from the line in that most of the details put into the outer hollow shell, which looks like, you know, a skull-faced monster from like a He-Man or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle line. He comes with a sword, 2 guns, and a belt with a skull on it. The hollow shell pops open to reveal an unremarkable purple and gray robot with limited articulation, which transforms into an also not terribly impressive tank robot vehicle thing, like the world's lamest Russian doll. The first line of Pretenders at least had the ability to transform into a vehicle mode, which was actually something that the later lines of Pretenders inexplicably lacked. So eventually you get Pretenders that are just shells that pop open to give you robots, which then don't transform. They figured
Pretenders.
The Pretenders, yeah. They're pretending to be Transformers, I guess. The Pretenders do represent the beginning of the end in quality of the G1 toy line for a lot of people. Hasbro's partnership with Takara had ended by this time, and they were making all their new designs in-house rather than rebranding existing Japanese toys. They were no longer using die-cast metal in any capacity, and the plastic was getting notably cheaper and cheaper as it went on. Some of the magic does seem to have been lost in the transition, because from this point on, we'll be seeing more and more characters with bizarre gimmicks being introduced with great fanfare in the comics, only to never be seen again. Skullgrin at least gets an issue later on, which features him in a few months, which is kind of fun, as I remember. But after that, he doesn't really make much of an impact on the series. He appears exactly once in the IDW books, and sorry to the cartoon fans, but you never get to see the animated adventures of Skullgrin and his fellow Pretender. And that is Skullgrin.
And that is a good time for a podcast break.
The Transformers will return after these messages.
Welcome to the world of tomorrow! The Legion of Superheroes through the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, the Baxter series. 5 years later, the reboot, the 3-boot, the retro-boot, the animated series. We have banded together as the Legion of Super Bloggers to cover it all. Seek us out at legionofsuperbloggers.blogspot.com.
Why do you always have to say it that way? Haven't you ever heard of a little thing called showmanship?
We now return to the Transformers.
Now it's time for transmissions, where we heap praise upon the audience for listening to us. Thank you so much for all the likes, shares, and retweets, and etc. that you have given us. And we will talk this issue about Transformer Chronicles, episode 38, featuring Transformers issue 38. And we have social media shares and retweets from Collateral Cinema, Days of High Adventure Podcast, and JohnReadsComics.com. And now we will pick a couple of comments, because we had quite a few actually for 38. People had some things to say about the introduction of the Nebulon Transformer contingency to the Earthbound Transformers universe. I will start us off by reading. I'll read a comment from John Reads Comics, who says, "So this issue is a bit of a watershed issue for me. The character explosions don't stop. Our cast of toys will continue to grow way beyond my ability to keep track of them. And I'll be curious to see how y'all respond to the storytelling as it copes with the changes." John continues and says, "Also, Maggie's Fortress Maximus Cerebro Spike confusion is well founded. The comic seems to all but ignore the fact that there is an intermediate robot in a nested egg structure, and Fort's head turning into the human is often treated as the de facto reality. Even the brief transformation panels give lip service to Cerebro's existence. And I found that annoying. But other than that, I'm excited to see you reach this point. The book is literally never the same after this." Some comments and a little bit of ominous portend from John there, which I personally understand what he's saying about the whole Headmasters thing. And I remember Maggie having some frustration about it. And I kind of just mentioned, I wouldn't worry too much about it, because it kind of just is what it is. And it's much better to just say, you know what, this is probably going to just be a part of the lore that I just don't understand and I think is weird, and just continue on rather than just get frustrated by it and allow it to spoil the rest of what can oftentimes be pretty good stories. That's just my take on it anyway.
To his other point, I agree with him. It's not that issue per se, but it's moving forward from a little bit from here. You'll begin to see Bob's burnout start to take hold, I think, because from this point on, it's going to just be nothing but, and here's new characters and new characters. Like every single issue introduces more characters than you can keep track of, and then you never see them again. And I think it got a little bit, I think it started to get to him. And then Simon Furman comes along right at about the right time, I think, to really give it a shot in the arm, because by that point, the Transformers toy line was actually on the wane, so Simon was free to actually write more stories. So it'll be interesting once we get to that.
We're a little bit of ways, not too far away. If we turn out an episode or so once every month, we'll be there by next fall. So let's see how that goes.
From Peter Pelletier, he says, "Yay, a current episode I can listen and react to. I appreciate the enthusiasm."
I will add a little bit more behind that. Peter has found Transformers Chronicles, and I can't remember how he found it. I want to say Spotify. Apparently, I have a semi-decent following on Spotify from what I've heard. And he started commenting on the Facebook Messenger page and saying that he was catching up on all of them. And so he did. And we've talked back and forth quite a bit. So, Pete, welcome aboard. Thank you so much for joining us. And hey, if you are listening to us on Spotify and you want to be heard, find us on Facebook or something and shoot us a comment. Just let us know that you're out there. We'd love to hear from you.
Lane from Batman Books, the Dark Knight in Prose podcast, as well as frequent guest star on our podcast, is also has started listening to all of ours in order. So welcome, Lane. But by the time she gets to this one, it'll be like 2 years from now. So I will read this comment from Herbert Fung. He said, back to the comment about the Headmaster's miniseries. If Fort Max and his crew was so set on leaving war behind to find peace, why the hell did they go find a world populated by other beings? Very good point. All they had to do was find an uninhabited world, which wouldn't be hard to find. They wouldn't have been in a situation where the inhabitants could call on the Decepticons. Anyways, this is my attempt to homage the cover. I don't have a Scorponok figure, so a plastic lobster will have to be the substitute, and my lava is red here. Good man, Herbert. You know what color lava is. He's put together a scene with a Fort Max figure fighting a lobster and on a red blanket. I'm jealous of him, but it's completely offset by the really cool thing he set up. So thanks, Herbert.
Very cool. And I think this is maybe the second time or the third time that he's been doing these cover recreations with his figures that he has. So very cool. Keep it up. Keep it up.
Yeah, keep it up, even though like I'm a little bit jealous that he has a Fortress Maximus like that. So keep it up, but also go to hell.
We got to be jealous of the Hammer Strikes too.
Yeah, I'll take that one. Gene from the Hammer Strikes says, okay, I won't tell you that I had a Fortress Maximus. Yes, Gene, we know. And it was probably sitting on top of your USS Flag that you said you had to, or the Endeavor that you had to as well, too. So,
we got to have Gene on here so I can call him a bastard for having those toys to his face.
Man, some people have it's like the Joker and Batman, somebody always has the nice toys, right? There are two other comments that I will quickly read. One from a new person, Joel Val Freeman, who says, I remember buying that off the rack at a little convenience store. Thanks for commenting, Joe. And Christopher Willett says, this was a fun episode, but I might just be commenting because I like to hear my name read on your podcast. I feel like I'm hanging out with the cool kids. Christopher Willett of the Spiritual Lens podcast. Well, if you think we're the cool kids, then, consider all of us Miles Davis.
Come and sit at the cool table and share your snack pack with us.
If we happen to miss anyone, we do apologize. It's a good problem to have, but we don't want to forget to recognize anyone. If you ping us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, we will correct it the next issue. And that's the show. Please come back and join us for the next episode where we discuss Transformers issue 41, where we get to see a battle royale like the Transformers have never seen before. If you'd like to hear more from us, the Longbox Crusade is in a lot of places. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and most podcatchers, to include the aforementioned Spotify at www.longboxcrusade.com. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, look for Longbox Crusade. You will find us. We have a Patreon, Longbox Crusade. If you look for that, you can join our Crusaders Club for $1 a month. YouTube, subscribe. Please like and subscribe this podcast. It's like the podcast. Subscribe to the Longbox Crusade feed, better said. We do a live stream once a month, every second Sunday. Come out to play, a New Warriors podcast that I host every second Tuesday of the month. And we drop podcast content on the YouTube channel as well. So you can just stream us and listen to us via YouTube if you care to do so. Come check us out. We even have a voicemail at 707-532-5269. If you read comments, if you have a comment about the show, you can just leave us a voicemail. 707-532-LBOX. Pat,
pick up the phone.
Thank you, sir. And you can also email us at contact@longboxcrusade.com. John and Maggie, why don't you tell us about your podcast and where you can be found on the internet?
We are MWC Podcasts. The MWC stands for whatever we want it to. We talk about all kinds of nerdy stuff, comics, cartoons, books, all sorts of things. You can find us wherever you found this place. You can contact us by sending us emails at marriedwcomics@gmail.com. The show is technically on Twitter at MWC_podcast, though it does not have much of a presence there, but you are free to send messages to us there if you would like. Pat, where can we find you?
Well, Jonathan, I'm glad you asked. You can find me on the Twitter at Christatos01. Delvin, where can you be found?
I can be found on Twitter, DEE_RAY1977, Instagram, Delvin Ray. And And that's it from all of us here at Transformers Chronicles. See y'all next time. And remember, freedom is the right of all sentient beings till all are one.
Till all are one.
Till the next game.
Yeah, when's the next game we're going to play, Delvin?
That'd be next month, about 4 weeks from now.
About 4 weeks from now.
You got the touch. You got the power.
And yeah, I had something else to say, but I forgot what it was. So I'm going to edit that out and it'll be like it didn't happen.
Oh, look who wants to edit out their stuff. When
I'm going to edit that out too. It's almost like I can't hear you now.
Did he say anything? I don't know. I don't know. All right.
Did they hear all of that cuteness?
Wow.
Oh, they did. Good.